Amazing grace.
Class, Christ is risen.
He is risen indeed.
And we're on page 18. We are looking at Unit 3, the second Gentile kingdom. What was the first one? Please tell me, everybody. Yes. What's the second one?
Medo-Persia.
Yes, Medo-Persia. And we're on lesson 4, and we're studying King Cyrus, founder of the Medo-Persian Empire. You'll look at that great big word up here, Archimedes, and it's on your paper. That was the name of the dynasty of Cyrus of Persia. So quite often, you will, when you're reading and researching this kind of information, you will see the word Archimedes Empire. It's also on your paper. King Cyrus was the founder. As you read Isaiah 40 through 45, look for a man named Cyrus. Did you find anything about him, Virginia? What? He was in chapter 45 and also chapter 44. Yeah, the last verse of chapter 44. We're going to look quickly today at who Cyrus was in secular history. If you want to go and read the historical account of Cyrus and of Persia, look up the Greek historian who wrote in the 200 BC, I think, and his name was Herodotus. And I'll write that down someday. If you want to do some study on that, look up the Greek historian Herodotus, and he is one who told us the most about the secular history. And when I say secular, what does that word mean? World history. That's right. It's not scriptural. Next week we're going to look at the scriptural prophecies of Cyrus, but today we're looking at the secular history. It means not from the Bible. Okie doke? We're going to look first at his early life, and he was born around 600 BC in Persia. You want to write this down. I didn't put it in your notes. I will next week. Isaiah prophesied of Cyrus 150 years before he was born. So it was about 750 BC that Isaiah wrote about Cyrus. It's amazing. In fact, skeptics today, people who don't really believe the Bible, said it's not possible that he could have written this history because it was 150 years before he was even born, 200 years before he even accomplished his missions. So you think, how could that happen? Well, it wasn't possible, was it? Is it possible for anybody to tell what's going to happen 150 to 200 years from now? Is it possible? No, it is not possible. And so in these 5 chapters that you read, God is giving you the setting of Cyrus. He's saying, hey, false prophets, idols cannot predict the future. I am the Lord God. I am the only God. There is no other God beside me. And I am telling you now what's going to happen in the future. Isn't that exciting? Isn't it? He was born 600 BC, a vassal state of Media. Do you remember your map of Media? Go back to a few pages and you will find, well, I'll show it to you in a minute. Don't worry about it. What does it mean? Okay, here's another new word. Vassal. What does a vassal state mean? What? Tributary? Okay. They are under the control of the larger state. they pay tribute to the king. Cyrus's Persia, when he was young, Persia was a vassal state of Media. This little tiny insignificant country called Persia paid tribute to Media for protection, or for the fact that perhaps he wouldn't come in and send them to jail or prison or kill the nation because they didn't pay money. That's what a vassal state is. Do you have that down? You okay with that now, Joelle? Okay. All right. His family, Cyrus's family, belonged to the insignificant semi-nomadic Pescagare tribe. We learned that word, Pescagare. We'll look at it again. And it was they raised sheep and livestock. That's all they did. They really didn't do anything except raise sheep and livestock. Beautiful hill country in southwest, what country today? Iran. So Persia today is in Iran. Right up here is a whole big table. Okay. So that's page 18, number 1, A and B. Questions? We're going to see a map in just a moment. Cyrus's maternal grandfather. There's another word. What does maternal mean? His maternal grandfather. His mother's father. His grandfather on his mother's side was Astyages. That was his name. He was the king of the Media Empire. His father was Cambyses the first. Did I put first on there? I should have. And he was the Persian king. And his mother was Mandane. Who was her father? Astyages. That's right. King Astyages' murder. Media. She was a princess and daughter of Astyages, the king of the empire. That's number 2. I sure hope I get the map on here in just a minute. Does everybody have their notebook and can turn back to page, let's see, just keep turning back until you find the map of Persia. Where's your notebook, Mark? Do you have one? Well, we'll get you one. All right. Look for Media and Persia, southwest Iran. Pescagare, that was one of the capital cities. Media was the controlling empire. It was a big empire. Persia was just a province, a small, insignificant agricultural province of Media. All right? Now let's look at his birth. Now this is from Herodotus, the Greek historian who wrote, I can't really remember, but I think it was about 200 BC. This is a legend, and this is number 3. His birth involves a dream. Boy, it's amazing how many dreams were significant back in the days of before, aren't they? It involves an abandoned baby and a shepherd. So those are the 3 things that his birth revolved around. So let me tell you this story, okay? That's number 3. At his birth, the princess of Astyages of Media gave birth to Cyrus, and her father, the king of Media, dreamed that his grandson would one day overthrow him. That was his dream. Now, a king who has a dream like that, what's he going to do? He's going to consider it true, first of all, and what? Try to kill him. He's going to kill that baby. Let's see if he did. Letter B. He ordered his general to abandon the baby in the mountains of Persia to die. These kings had total power, didn't they? Total power to do anything. There was no check. at all on their decisions. If they wanted to kill somebody, they killed somebody. So he sent this baby into the mountains to die. Letter C. However, a shepherd in the hillside found the baby and took it home to his wife. I've always just kind of thought, what if somebody just left the baby on my porch step? Would I be happy? I would not tell anybody it'd be my baby, right? Well, that's the way this was. And he took this baby home to his wife, and they raised him as their own. Isn't that a sweet story? Okay. And they taught him the art of shepherding. And I looked that up. I thought, is shepherding an art? Is it a skill? What is it? And as I looked it up, it was talking about shepherding as an art. And it was really from the Christian perspective that Jesus is our shepherd and that we are shepherds. All right? We are shepherds. And the art of shepherding is caring for the sheep. It's feeding the sheep, finding them green grass, finding them fresh, still water. I knew OSU would show up in the Bible somewhere, and there it is, in John 23, still water.
Come
I
on.
say that to my husband, he didn't think that was right at all. But you care for your sheep and your staff and your rod. They care for the sheep. They protect them. And David, as the shepherd, said he could fight lions and bears. And if they wouldn't let go of the baby, of the little lamb, what would he do? Pastor Rod taught about this. He killed those lions and bears. He was able to do that. That's the art of shepherding. And that's number 3. Let's look at letter D. Anybody have questions on number 3, A through C? Okay. Letter D. When Cyrus was 10, that's 2 years younger than my Marley. When he was 10, the general confessed that he hadn't killed the baby. And other parts of the legend say that King Astyages saw this little boy and said, that little boy looks like he belongs to our family. And the general confessed. You know, this is a legend, but it has some kind of truth to it. And he allowed Cyrus to return to his birth parents. And that makes me sad too. How would that mom feel, that shepherd mom? So, now it says, ask your teacher for the rest of the story. You want to hear the rest of the story? I didn't put it in your notes. Molly, you want to hear the rest of the story? Yeah. Okay. Thank you. The king let Cyrus go home to his birth parents, and then he had a big banquet later and invited all of his generals and his important people. And at the end of dinner, great dinner. At the end of dinner, he told his general that delicious meat that they eaten was the general's son. And then he brought out the general's son's head to prove it. Isn't that horrible? That's awful. But anyway, I didn't want to put that in the notes. It's too awful. Anyway. So if you want to find out more about this, just look up the legend of Cyrus's birth, king of Persia. All right? That's the rest of that story. What? At the end of dinner. This was after the banquet was over. Now, you don't tell that you learned that in class, okay? Because that's too awful. But I thought maybe you'd like to know. Now, number 4. Cyrus began as a vassal king. He was in a vassal state to Media. He was the king now. His dad was, Cambyses the first was the king, and now he's the king. And he was the king of Persia to his grandfather of Media. He was the vassal king, meaning he was under the authority. He was subservient to Media as the king of Persia. Letter A, in 553 BC at the age of 47. Now, when did Cyrus conquer Babylon? What was the famous year?
559.
539. So this is 553. So it's about how many years before he conquered Babylon? 53 take away 39 is 14 years. Okay, about 14 years before. At the age of 47, Cyrus rebelled against his grandfather, just like the dream that his grandfather had. 3 years later, in 550 BC, he actually overthrew his grandfather as king of Media. That's letter B, number 4B. His Astyages was overthrown as the king of Media. So then, what do you think happened when he overthrew Media? Then Persia becomes the dominant nation, sort of, doesn't it? And so he combined those two nations, Media and Persia, and he became King Cyrus the Great. He named himself Cyrus the Great. Most kings who were called the Great were called the Great because the king called himself that. And so Cyrus called himself Cyrus the Great of the Medo-Persian Empire. You doing all right, Liz? This is kind of fun, isn't it? Is this interesting?
Yes.
All right. Soon after, the Medo-Persian Empire was simply called what? The Persian Empire. And until about, during, I think, World War I, that area, Iran, was called Persia. From then, from 550 BC until World War I in the 1970s, that's before I was even born, it was always known as Persia, and then it became Iran after the war. And I've got to study that someday and see how that happened. But the last king was, oh, I told you last week, the last king of Iran was the guy, remember when they overthrew the Shah of Iran? The Shah of Iran. And the Islamic people took over the United States Embassy, took all those people into captive until Reagan was elected. Remember that? Mm-hmm. That was when the Persian Empire dynasty of kings ended with the Shah of Iran. Okay. But we might look at that someday. Letter B. Once Cyrus became the king of Persia and Media, he continued to expand his empire. We've talked a little bit about this, but we'll just review it again because it's important. Remember when we looked at the bear that represented Iran, Media, and Persia? How many ribs did that bear have in his mouth? 3. And what did we learn that those ribs represented? Kings and kingdoms. So we're going to find those kings and kingdoms. He expanded his empire. Now, here's the map. All right. Lights, please, Kevin. And who has the pointer with the light on it? Okay, Kevin, that's your job too. Kevin, I want you to go way down to, go over to Media, and everybody can see the map. Okay, there's Media, and that was the empire before Persia. Go down to Persia. There was the smaller nation. Who lived in Persia? Who was the king of Persia? Cyrus. Who was king of Media? Astyages or something like that. And Cyrus conquered Media in what year? 550 BC. About 11 or 12 years before he conquered Babylon. Now go up to Nineveh. What country was Nineveh the capital of? No.
Syria.
Assyria. That's right. That's what you meant, wasn't it? That's right on the tip of your tongue. And now go up to Lydia. There you go. That's what that country today. Turkey. That's right. And so he conquered Turkey, Lydia, in 547 BC, and then go down to Neo-Babylonia, and he conquered Neo-Babylonia. Keep going down 7. When did he do that?
539.
539 BC. And Jerusalem, Judah, was part of Neo-Babylonia, so they became part of what empire now? The Persian Empire, that's right. Now go to Egypt, and his son, Cambyses II, conquered Egypt in 525 BC. Is that on your map, on your paper? So what I want you to do is I want you to circle Media, because that was the first country he conquered. Then go up to Lydia, circle Lydia, Neo-Babylonia, and what was the last one after he died? Egypt. Okay. And I taught that lesson some time back about Egypt. Does anybody, lights please, does anybody remember how the Persians conquered Egypt? With cats. And we'll talk about that, with cats. Because cats were their most important goddess. So we'll talk about that in a few weeks, how Cambyses II conquered Egypt. All righty, any questions on the map? Okay, let's go on to number 1, the first expansion. We already know it. He defeated Lydia. Now this is interesting. Let's see, what number is this? Okay, number 1, the first expansion in 547, he defeated Lydia. Its king was named Cyrus. Could be Croesus, but I think it's Croesus. I want my kids in here to start doing some research on these kings. All righty? Right, Amy? Okay, all right. Logan, don't you hide from me. I see you, Avery. Nathan, you too. Where's the rest of my kids? The rest of my kids, oh, Ziva. She was hiding too. Look up some of this stuff. It's so important, and you could use it for a great history report in high school or college. You really could. Or in here. You get a sticker if you do it for in here. How many of you kids are going to do one of these kings? Good, all of you. All right. Croesus. Does anybody know anything about Croesus? Anybody ever heard of him?
That's what you're...
Wealthy.
That's where rich is Croesus.
Very good. Where'd you learn that, Doc? Yes, Lyndon?
That's what your cleaners... You want to put your cleaners in your pants. Creases.
Y'all hear him? He said, isn't that something like what you asked the cleaners to put in your pants, the creases? Yes, darling, I love you. All right. He was known for his immense wealth. And in fact, the phrase, rich as Croesus, is still used today. Now, who do we know today that could be rich as Croesus? Elon. Right, anybody else? Bill Gates. Zuckerberg. Mark Zuckerberg. Google? He Google? Okay. Anybody else rich as Croesus? Well, probably President Trump could be almost rich as Croesus. If he could, liquidate everything. He'd be rich. Anybody in here rich as Croesus? All right. Oh, I know you are, Kevin. Thank you. I knew I had one in here. What I want you to do this week is to use that expression somewhere. What's the expression I want you to use? Okay, here's Herodotus, the Greek historian Herodotus. That's letter C, is it? I don't think I put it on here. Okay, but there's the word he wrote it to. When King Cyrus the Great went into Lydia, he found this very arrogant, rich king, and he wanted everything he had, right? And so he would not subject himself to King Cyrus. So Cyrus put him on a funeral pyre. Anybody know what that is? A funeral pyre? It's a great, look at that picture right there, a great big pile of wood. And they burned them on the pyre. And that's what was happening to Croesus, and he was placed on a funeral pyre by Cyrus to die. Got it? Did we slow down? All right. So then Croesus began to say smart, very wise things to Cyrus. In fact, he told him how to go about being a more, bye-bye guys, thank you so much, a better military general. And so upon hearing of his wisdom, and that's what you need to look at. What were some of the wise things, I really can't remember, that King Croesus told Cyrus? Whew. So Cyrus had him taken down and placed him in a leadership role in his military. And so you can see his servant here putting more wood on the fire, on that vase. This is that vase. It's in Egypt, and it's Greek pottery. And so I haven't seen it yet, but it's Greek pottery of the Lydian King Croesus shown seated on a funeral pyre, often with a servant stoking the fire. Now that's in Egypt somewhere. So Lyndon, I don't really want to go to Egypt, but if we do, we need to go see this, okay? Are you awake? Okay. Page 19. I'm really quick on him. Second expansion. First expansion was Media, really. Second expansion was Lydia, and now we're looking at 539 BC. This was a very important year in biblical history and world history. What happened in 539 BC? Babylon was defeated. It fell. There was no longer a Neo-Babylonian empire. All of Neo-Babylonia became a province of what empire? Persia. So in 539 BC, Cyrus, when he was 61 years old, defeated the Neo-Babylonian empire. Where will you find that in the Bible? Or will you? Will you? Not Daniel 7. Daniel 7 is the beast, Daniel's vision and dream of the beast. Where would you find the fall of Babylon? Chapter 5. Daniel 5, the handwriting says you die. That's how you remember that. Thank you, Miss Cheryl. The handwriting says you die. Daniel 5. Daniel 5:28. And now we've been looking at Daniel's prophecies of Persia, right? Correct. The first one was Nebuchadnezzar's dream. Persia was represented by the arms of silver, right? Daniel 2. The second prophecy was Daniel 7 when he dreamed of the beasts coming out of the sea. Which beast represented Persia? The bear with the 3 ribs and the higher shoulder. Daniel 8 was his third prophecy of Medo-Persia. What did he see in Daniel 8? The ram. Good for you. The ram. And it was coming from the east, and it went so fast, and it conquered everything in its path. Remember? All right, so this is Daniel's fourth prophecy. Did you know that Daniel prophesied of the Medo-Persian Empire this many times? And I just realized this one this week when I was meditating and thinking. and praying, God, help me with my lessons. Anybody know what Daniel's fourth prophecy is concerning the Medo-Persian Empire? Daniel 5:28. Anybody know? Okay, King Belshazzar had the writing on the wall, and he called in Daniel, and Daniel said, your kingdom is divided and given to whom? The Medes and the Persians. You remember I told you that prophecy is very, very progressive. This is the fourth prophecy, and now we're just being told what's happening to the first kingdom, aren't we? It's divided between the Medes and the Persians. And there, I don't know if you can see it. Please, Lord, get us another projector. This is Rembrandt's painting of the writing on the wall, and that is the king. Look at your picture on page 19, and look at the turban on his head. That white wrap thing is a huge turban, and on the very top of the turban is a tiny little what? Crown. Isn't that interesting? Okay. And that is page 19B, number 2. So how did the Medes and the Persians conquer Babylon and divide it? Well, letter C, Cyrus's armies diverted the Euphrates River. Now, the Euphrates River was the river on which the city of Babylon was built. In fact, the river went right through the city of Babylon. It acted as a moat. You couldn't get across it to get into the royal city. And so they diverted it into a canal. The water level began to sink. In fact, it sank so low that the height of the middle of a man's thigh was how high it was. And that's pretty low when it was 60 feet deep at its deepest. And now it's like 2 feet high. Yes, ma'am.
Kathleen,
I'm going to talk to Ziva over here, then I'll talk to Mary. His prophecy was fulfilled that very night. His prophecy was fulfilled. So it didn't take long to fulfill this prophecy. It took a couple of hours. Yes, Mary?
That's what I was asking.
All right. Thank you for asking. Everybody appreciates that. All right. And it went to the height of a man's thigh. So it went from 60 feet deep to about 2 feet deep. So if it's 2 feet deep, that army could just march directly through the riverbed. They went under the walls into the city of Babylon. They went into the palace, and what was King Belshazzar doing in the palace? Partying with how many friends? 1,000. And they were drinking and toasting in God's silver and gold goblets that were stolen from his temple. Very good, Kathy. Give Kathy a hand, because that's good. They were, did you tell her that? Okay, I'm so glad you can copy off each other. They were praising other gods of gold and silver and wood and iron and clay, and toasting these gods with God, our God's temple treasures. And they entered Babylon at night, killed Belshazzar, and defeated the empire. All in one night. Now, it took a while to divert a 60-foot Euphrates River. Deep. 60-foot deep. Right? I mean, they just didn't do that overnight. How long do you think it would take an army to divert that water into another canal and lower the riverbed? Lower the river? Months? Well, it would have to take months, wouldn't it? Or weeks or something. What in the world were Belshazzar's army and his guards doing when they saw that river going down?
They probably didn't notice it first because
partying, they just weren't concerned because they considered themselves invincible. That's right. Any questions on all of that? Okay, there's the, that's the little tiny crown on the huge turban. And I just got a picture of that. I thought that was kind of interesting. You put the lights off a minute, Kevin, just so people can see that tiny crown. And I hadn't seen that when I looked at that picture before. I thought that was interesting. Okay. His third expansion. So when King Cyrus died, after his death, his son, what was his son's name? Cambyses II conquered Egypt in 525 BC. Now that was after the defeat of Babylon, wasn't it? And why am I doing all of this? Because every bit of this was prophesied in Isaiah. Not the names of the countries, but all of this, that this Cyrus, this servant of God, did all of this. Conquered nations, collected wealth. And we're going to do that next week. I can't wait to teach that, so y'all come back. Number 4. Therefore, with all of this, and they went all the way over to Greece, by the way, the Persian Empire became the largest empire that the world had ever yet seen. The empire, letter A, and you can see your map, extended from the Indus River of India, where? In the what?
In the
East. So go over to east from there and find the Indus River, and you will see India. So they went all the way over there to the Great Peninsula in the west, and if you will go all the way west past Turkey, you'll see an arrow that points to Greece. And to Egypt in what direction?
South.
In the south. I have this map on the bottom of your page to show you the countries which were part of the Persian Empire today. And just look at that. Let's start with India. They didn't control India, but they stopped at the Indus River. And they had Afghanistan. Now, Afghanistan is one of the most awful countries when it comes to desert and rock and just a total devastated land. Nothing there except wild people. Okay? And Tajikistan, that's north. Tajikistan. Then going on up higher, I'm going to try this. Kyrgyzstan. Got it?
Yep.
And then Uzbekistan. All of these countries used to be part of what? Russia, the Soviet Union. And then we had Turkmenistan, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Iran, Azerbaijan. Then there's the Tigris River that divides somewhat Iran from Iraq. Then you see Iraq, Kuwait, go down to the, well, no, I don't think Saudi Arabia was part of Persia. So don't go down there. But you can see now Saudi Arabia is on this map. But it wasn't part of the Persian Empire. Then Armenia, Georgia, Turkey, Syria, Lebanon, Israel, parts of Palestine, and Jordan and Egypt. That was all the Persian Empire. Now next week I want you to be able, I'm going to give you a blank map of the Middle East. I want you to fill in all those. I don't know why you're laughing. Stay. But you need to know kind of how that works. Is that fun to see that? Now, yes ma'am?
Would you give me the blank map? Can I use this as a cheat sheet?
What, Mary?
I said, would you give me the blank map? Can I use this as a
Yeah,
cheat
you
sheet?
can use that one for sure. Alright, now listen up. This is what you need to know that we have taught. Are you ready? Do you remember what was the first prophecy of the Medo-Persian Empire?
Babylonian.
What?
The Babylonian Empire?
What?
Oh, first prophecy.
Nebuchadnezzar's dream of the statue.
Oh.
What chapter? The statue in chapter 2. Then statue, chapter 2. What? Okay, Nebuchadnezzar's statue. The second prophecy. What was that one? The beast like a bear. What chapter?
Daniel 7.
Daniel 7. That's right. The third prophecy. What chapter? Daniel 8 and the ram. The fourth prophecy, one we looked at today.
Daniel 9.
Daniel 5. When Babylon was divided between the Medes and the Persians. Now next week, and I want you to read chapters 40 through 45. Thank you, Virginia. Look for Cyrus. Look for some prophecies that give his name. Look for his purposes that God has for him. God gave him 2 very important titles. One was his shepherd. Isn't that cool? He was raised as a shepherd. God's called Cyrus his shepherd. And the other one is his anointed. And there's no other Gentile in the Bible that I can think of that was called God's anointed. All right. Oh. Come here, Steve. And here's another research paper you need to do. Everybody. I love this. Anybody know what this is? Cyrus's cylinder. Lyndon, I know I told y'all this, but Lyndon took me to London a few years ago. He said, we're going to go to the British Museum. What do you want to see? And I said, I don't see anything else in London. I want to see Cyrus's cylinder. This was done in 539 BC. He wrote on here the most amazing things. So look it up, because we're going to look at this one. Isn't this beautiful? I have a picture of me standing behind the Cyrus cylinder crying. I really did. I cried when I got to see this, because it is so indicative of God's word, of how he keeps his word. We can trust him. And here we have a pagan king who didn't even acknowledge the God of Israel, wrote on this cylinder the most amazing things for God. Anybody know what it is? Just raise your hand if you know what he wrote on here. Okay. Read Ezra 1 through 5. And you'll find out about it. Okay? So, I've taught this lesson before. Anybody remember it besides Kathy and Steve? Okay. So, I'm going to teach it again because you're going to love it. That's next week. So, let me see. That's all. Soon we will study 2 more prophecies concerning the empire. Then may God bless the teaching of his word. Amen. Let's pray. Thank you, Father, for writing in your prophecies things that are totally impossible for the prophets to know, except that they were moved by your Spirit to write these things. Thank you for the prophet Isaiah. He was such a wonderful, wonderful man of God. And he wrote these things 150 years before Cyrus was even born. And people said that's impossible. But we have a great, great God. You are the great I am. You are the God of Israel. And you are our God. And we can trust you. And we thank you. And we don't have to worry. Father, a lot of us this week dealt with very emotional issues with family. And Lord, we just thank you that you got us through it. and that we are going to continue to lean on you because you are our protector and our strength. You are our rod and our staff. You will protect us. And even though we walk through the valley of the shadow of death, you are always with us. And we thank you in the name of Jesus. Amen. Thank you for letting me be with you.